Welcome back live. It's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas right here at the BetMGM Sportsbook at the MGM Grand. Excited to bring you more action live on the street here from SportsGrid live in Las Vegas. It's been a hell of a week so far. We continue to bring you more interviews and obviously try to give you continued angles on this game, storylines. We're trying to get as many storylines as possible, any relevant story that may come out that will impact this game. Really, in the last 24 hours or so, we saw the Sky Moore for the Chiefs is activated, so he's off IR, and he is going to be on the active roster. Another player to monitor is Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon, they have until Saturday at 4 p.m. to activate him. He was limited in practice yesterday, so he does have the ability to at least walk through right now and try to get a sense of exactly what he's going to look like as we head closer and closer to this game. And in talking to our expert, Adam Kaplan, it looks like at the moment, McKinnon has a shot here. Word earlier in the week, probably unlikely, but McKinnon has a shot to play, and Adam will be on with us a little bit later this hour. Great interviews coming up today, by the way, with Adam Kaplan and Ariel Epstein and Ken Fuchs, who's COO and head of sports at Caesars. But what we're seeing right now is the possibility that Jerick McKinnon may actually play. What's fascinating about that is he is used in high leverage situations. 4th and short, 3rd and short, goal line scenarios. Jerick McKinnon is that player that could come out of nowhere and potentially steal a touchdown. So no props posted for him just yet, but is somebody worth monitoring as we get closer to the game. The other major injury for the Chiefs, Joe Thuney, probably not going to happen. They are monitoring it day by day with the pectoral strain, but when the head coach says, I would bet on Allegretti starting in favor of Thuney, I think you have a sense of where that is. A very extreme long shot for Joe Thuney to play, I feel, in this Super Bowl. We all know Amenahu tore his ACL. He's out for the game. So we'll continue to monitor stories like that, and the fact that, of course, as it seems to happen, at some time at one point during Super Bowl week every year, the 49ers fire alarm got pulled at 6 a.m. this morning. So I don't know how late they sleep in, but for a 6:30 p.m. game, they are pushing that wake-up time back. I don't know that anybody's going to be waking up 12 hours before kick, but they had to today, as somebody pulled the fire alarm. Prankster, I guess. Chiefs fan, perhaps, but you never can tell. And that's the biggest storyline coming out of today regarding the teams. Obviously very closed environments for those teams, and we'll bring you those stories from the regulated press conferences as much as we can. So some other action in Vegas. Sun was out a little bit today in Vegas. A little bit more rain, a little bit more sun. We're hoping to have sun as we head a little bit closer to Sunday, so everybody can enjoy the city, walk around from hotel to hotel, on the Strip, off the Strip, wherever you may be. Maybe folks traveling in from out of town get in at 18 holes or something like that. But obviously with a roof over our heads and the game on Sunday, the weather isn't a major factor other than trying to enjoy the city. And I've certainly been able to. We're working hard here at SportsGrid live from Las Vegas, but we have the opportunity to bring you all different types of people to interview. So Sportsbook, head of sports, like I said, Ken Fuchs. We got Ariel Epstein, my former colleague at SportsGrid. She's now with Fanatics Sportsbook, and Adam Kaplan, giving some inside information. We walk through the matchups a little bit more there. Adam's great with player news and his ability to break down the game. So we'll make sure we get to that in this hour. In hour number 2, we'll have Rick Haro. Rick Haro, sports marketer extraordinaire. He'll be on with us and making sure that he delivers all the information regarding, what is the media impact. I have some expertise in media as well. What is the media impact going to look like? What is that number going to look like when we open up the browser on Tuesday morning? How many viewers will it be? Could it crest to 120 million viewers? Entirely possible. I'm sure you'll see record-breaking streaming numbers for the Super Bowl this year. Plus, Rick has a lot of sense of what's going to happen with the Super Bowl commercials, what is the impact on certain brands, and everything else related to this game. And what is the impact on the NFL's business overall? Obviously, it's the largest professional league that we have, and the ratings continue to astound. But as Roger Goodell gave his press conference on Monday, a little bit of a limited press conference compared to years past, invite only, and it was on Monday instead of Wednesday. He said he wanted to focus on the players, but I also think there was a little bit of misdirection from him in saying that, because I think he just does not want to continue to have people question exactly what's gone on during Super Bowl week. He bristled at the thought of the Niners practice field. He bristled and said, that's been tested many times over by experts, so let's move on to the next question. He did talk a little bit about streaming, though. It's a world I know pretty well. I obviously work for a streaming network here at SportsGrid, and I have a background in working in that type of technology as well. But somebody asked, is there a time when you could see a streaming only or streaming first Super Bowl? And he said, not in my tenure, and Rodgers not expected to leave anytime soon. We'll be here at least through the end of the decade, it's anticipated. So, streaming impact, it's going to be a linear television product for the foreseeable future as long as he's around, and as long as most of you are around, you'll have to find some sort of linear network on which to watch. But the good news is the NFL has embraced streaming options, your ability to stream above and beyond those linear options. So, those are some of the storylines that have happened this week. As I continue to talk to people to get a sense of where their heads are at in this game, I think it is really split. Gabe Morency, my partner in crime here on SportsGrid, I think broke it down pretty well. A lot of the football people are on the Chiefs. A lot of wagerers, a lot of people in sports betting leaning on San Francisco. So some of those people are one and the same, but I think those players, coaches, executives tend to lean towards the Chiefs. Is that the fear of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid? I think it's a big part of it. I think it's what we're looking at when people saying they don't want to bet against Mahomes. How could I bet against Mahomes again? Some people losing twice on Mahomes so far this postseason versus the Bills and the Ravens. They don't want to do it a third time. That's not really why I arrived at the bet I arrived at. By the way, I was on Mahomes versus both the Bills and the Ravens. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm not going to bail on him now. And I'm trying to evaluate and make sure that I'm not being stubborn. Because to be honest, a couple of years ago, the COVID year, when the Chiefs tried to run it back against the Bucs, I was stubborn. Their offensive line had fallen apart, and they were facing a Bucs team that could put heat on the quarterback, and that they did. Mahomes limping around the field for much of that game as they got blown out, losing by several touchdowns. And we'll touch on that a little bit during the Ariel Epstein interview and how Tom Brady ended up with that MVP, but perhaps Devin White with 14 tackles and a game-clinching interception was perhaps that MVP. Super Bowl MVP, one of the most talked about props. The most talked about player, long shot player, Deebo Samuel, very consistently. People think he can have a huge impact on this game. At 25-1 for Super Bowl MVP, I know there's a lot of people taking shots. That price may come down even a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if Deebo goes off at 20-1 for Super Bowl MVP. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about some other angles towards the final score and the spread, winning margins after this. SportsGrid live from Las Vegas on the grid.
.47 is one of the hardest numbers to beat, period, for an NFL football game. A lot of combinations that can fall 47. You decide.
Of course.
You're getting great two-way action. That's what you want as the book. You don't have to move the number. Right. Biggest game of the year is the easiest game to book in the world.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They reel off the Chiefs, do 21 straight points. They win the game 31-20.
I've been selling this, because of the $23 billion is going to be bet on this game in the States this Sunday. That's insane. And this place, Vegas, they're going to make billions of dollars if the Chiefs don't win.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm digging deep, fellas. I'm digging deep. Christian McCaffrey minus 220. Donnie, how could you do that? The price point is way out of control in this. Keep it simple. The goal is to win money, not to outsmart everybody.
Mahomes is minus 140 to throw 2 touchdown passes. And if he's going to, every single thing suggests a wide receiver will haul in at least one, if not both.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
0 points scored in the fourth quarter of that Falcons Super Bowl, and the Niners were shut out.
Yep.
So in the 2 biggest games of the 2 Super Bowls, one as a coordinator, one as a head coach, he hasn't scored a single point in the fourth quarter. I tell you what, if they don't, on Sunday, they're not winning the game, bro.
Exactly.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back at the MGM Grand, here's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas, talking about points that'll be scored in Super Bowl 58 this Sunday. And you can talk about the total, which has been locked in at 47.5 all week long, but there's other ways to attack this. Each individual team, what will they score? First half, second half. And something we found here this week that we like quite a bit is the ability for both teams to score at a certain threshold. Both teams to score 10, 20, or 30 points. What does that look like? So let's break it down right here. Both teams to score, this is on the BetMGM app, keep in mind, both teams to score 10 or more points. Yes, minus 1,200. Obviously, we're in a market where we think the score is going to get to 47.5 unless there's a completely dominant performance. Both teams will get to 10. So, and the no for both teams not getting to 10, plus 625. So if you are in a position where you think the Niners blow out the Chiefs, similar to the Bucs did a few years ago, the Chiefs didn't get to 10 points. So plus 625, big payoff there. On the flip side, you think the Chiefs will really limit what the Niners are able to do? I don't see the game happening that way. They limited the Ravens quite a bit. The Ravens still got to 10 points. So keep in mind the risk associated with a bet like that. But 20 or more points? Yes, minus 110. So if you think this game is going to get into the 20s for both teams, and I heard Gabe Morency, he thinks it's 27-23. He likes both teams to get into the 20s. That's a minus 110 right there bet. So you're getting decent odds. You're not having to lay a lot of wood with that one. And on the no side, minus 120. So a little heavier juice there. I actually, as I get a little bit further into the week, I'm leaning that one of the teams doesn't score 20. I'm wavering as to whether or not I would place this bet. I don't think I would, because I still think that the Chiefs, who I am leaning towards, could get a victory at 23-20. That's still under. Both teams get to 20. I'd have a hard time betting the Niners to not score 20 points, although I do think from a game script standpoint, I think the Chiefs are going to try to control the clock. Isaiah Pacheco, a big part of the action for them. Path for him to be MVP, possibly. I've talked about it a lot this week. His number of touches, his ability to score a touchdown, maybe multiple touchdowns in order to earn that MVP and take it away from Patrick Mahomes, which would be a Herculean task in and of itself. So both teams to get to 20, no is minus 120. Now, 30 or more, this would be a lot of fun, obviously, if you're expecting a lot of points to be scored, just like last year. 38-35 final, both teams get to 30. That's plus 675. So if you think this game can play out similar to how it did last year with Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes trading touchdowns, particularly in the second half, then you have a plus 675 bet there. Pretty interesting. I do not think both teams get to 30. If both teams do get to 30, clearly that game is up for grabs, but I would lean with the Niners getting the victory. I think high-scoring game impacts the Niners. I would go so far as to say if this game is over, I would lean Niners. If it's under, which I think, then I'd lean Chiefs. But both teams 30 or more, that's minus 1,400. Obviously, you have to lay a lot of wood if you think it's going to be a lower-scoring game. There's better ways to attack that, taking the under and a variety of other things that can be profitable without having to lay that kind of wood. There's other things out there like exact total points, Kansas City Chiefs total points, 49ers total points. I'll pat myself on the back one more time this week. I did call the correct score in the Rams-Bengals Super Bowl, 23-20. I don't know if I'll ever break down a game better than I did that day, but picking the exact score was 100-1. Gabe was looking at some last night, 27-23. That's plus 125. So, that's plus 1250. So you're going to get a big money return on something like that. I don't really recommend betting those types of bets. I think for the Super Bowl, for fun, you put a couple of bucks down on betting the exact score. You just take the winnings and laugh all the way to the bank. Don't get Gabe said to me yesterday, he's like, oh, that's right. I remember you picked that exact score. I was like, yeah, I put 20 bucks down on it. He's like, too bad it wasn't 200. He's right, but why would I put 200 bucks down on something that I think that is such a specific prediction like that? Luck was in my favor that day, including a missed extra point to help get me there. So you can bet all of those types of angles on the game. But something I wanted to focus on too is winning margin. So let me get to it here. We're live on the BetMGM app. So this was, look, people are going to have futures right now on some of these teams, and perhaps you're comfortable laying 2 points or getting 2 points here in this position. But if you really, instead of predicting an exact score, if you feel like you have an angle on how close this game could be, you can go to winning margin by bands of score. For example, the 49ers to win a close game by 1 to 6 points. That's plus 310. So it gives you a little bit of a range. If you like the Niners, a 27-21 game, there you go. You're at plus 330. I actually think the Chiefs will win a close game. Chiefs by 1 to 6 plus 333. Sorry, the Niners is plus 310. Chiefs plus 333. So, again, it's getting specific, but I don't have to predict the exact score. I can just come up with something that I think the Chiefs win a close game, and there you go. By the way, you can take a couple of those markets. So you think the Chiefs win by under 12 points, you can take the Chiefs at plus 33 and the Chiefs at plus 550, separate those bets, have those bets separately done, and still find yourself a winner. You put $100 down on each, hypothetically, you can win $333 or you can win $550. You're laying out $200 obviously in that instance, but it does create a situation where you could be profitable if the Chiefs win the game by 10 points. Similar with the Niners. If you think the Niners are winning a game like that, you have similar odds, plus 310, plus 500. Now, I did this exact bet during the National Basketball Championship game when UConn played San Diego State. I picked a couple of different bands. I thought UConn would win comfortably. I picked a couple of different bands. UConn had a comfortable win. I think it was by 15. And that was a profitable night for me. So there are a lot of different ways to attack these games. You could obviously do it every week. People tend to not dive. People watching this program obviously dive a little bit deeper than the casual fan, but each and every week, it's hard to drill down on every single game. You have 16 games in a given week. To drill down on that type of specific prediction every week is hard. It's hard to do generally, but when you're not analyzing one game over the course of 2 weeks, it becomes even harder. You have a few days to figure out exactly what you're going to do. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. There are final score margins exactly by 3. If you think it's going to be a 3-point game, say I think it's going to be Chiefs 23, Niners 20, then you can get plus 450 to the yes on the Chiefs. So final score margin, you do final score margin exactly by 3, exactly by 7. You have first play yardage. I think the first play of the game is over 4.5 yards. That's minus 115. Minus 115 on the other side as well. I think you can expect a run or a screen pass early to McCaffrey or Pacheco, depending on who gets the ball. And you think those are going to be over 5 yards, then you bet the over 4.5 yards. So either team to record a safety, that's plus 1,000. We had Teddy Covers on the other day talking about this bet. And the sharps, the razor blades, as my friend Dave Sharapan likes to call them, they'll get down on the no on the safety. That's minus 3,000. So it's a lot of juice. But most often, we're not getting a safety in the Super Bowl. We have had them in recent years. Tom Brady had one. We had one against the Broncos. Tom Brady had one against the Giants. You had one on the first play of the Broncos-Seahawks Super Bowl. So not out of the question. We've seen safeties in Super Bowls a number of times, but more often than not, it doesn't happen. It's just like betting the game to go to overtime. So when we come back, we'll start our slate of interviews live. SportsGrid live from Las Vegas at the MGM Grand.
Forget what your offense is, like the Baltimore Ravens did against the Kansas City Chiefs. Work off of Christian McCaffrey, but I do believe Brock Purdy is ready for the moment, at least play-calling wise.
Kyle Shanahan, who called the plays as the offensive coordinator, had a 25-point lead, and his running back, Devontae Freeman, with that 25-point lead, touched the ball 4 times in the second half.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Super Bowl is set in Vegas. We get a rematch from just a few years ago.
The only consistency in the playoffs has been Travis Kelce.
Brock Purdy, back-to-back weeks throwing 1 touchdown pass, right? You can't win MVP with 1 touchdown pass. I hate the Chiefs, but I bet on them.
This is going to be a game that is played inside a field goal now from a spread perspective.
All that matters is there's one game left, the big game.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
They have played terrible football, and yet they always win. Have you noticed? Everyone keeps talking about how bad the Niners suck as they win every week. They win every game, even games they should have. They're down 24-7, and they still won.
Now we have the first excuse when the Niners lose on Sunday night. They practiced on a bad field at UNLV. They didn't get the proper conditions.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Back on the grid, SportsGrid live from Las Vegas. Excited to be here with you, as we've been all week. Got some interviews lined up here. We pre-taped some over at Radio Row earlier today. Started with my friend Ariel Epstein, a.k.a. the Prop Queen. She's at Fanatic Sportsbook. Recently trademarked Prop Queen. So she and I talked about the game, her Ravens, and a bunch of other stuff. Here she is. We'll be right back after the interview.
Hey, everybody. Back on Radio Row, Mike Blewitt along with Ariel Epstein, my buddy, my partner in crime for years on SportsGrid. Now with Fanatic Sportsbook, and she is the Prop Queen, the trademarked Prop Queen.
Yes.
Excited for you. How did that process work out? How long did it take?
Well, my dad kind of did it. I mean, it's nice to have a lawyer as a father. It was his idea. He said, Ariel, you got to stop letting people call themselves Prop Queen. You've been the Prop Queen since SportsGrid. You have to be it. So he went and did the whole process, and it took about 6 months.
That's great.
Yeah,
great.
So it's trademarked.
So the Prop Queen here to talk about the game with Fanatic Sportsbook. So your initial thoughts on the game. Chiefs, an underdog. Patrick Mahomes, an underdog. He's excellent as an underdog. What do you think?
I still like the Niners. The Niners at -2, pretty good number to get them at. Their defense has been more consistent all year. The Niners can stop Isaiah Pacheco on the Chiefs side. They have a great run D. The Niners offensively, they've got so much firepower. They have Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey who can run the football. I think you're going to see a lot of deception there.
I agree.
Brock Purdy doesn't necessarily have to throw the football much. You look back to the last time that Patrick Mahomes lost a Super Bowl, it was to one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the game, Tom Brady. They ran the football more. Brady only threw 29 times. I see the Niners playing a clean game, clean enough to beat this Chiefs team that, truthfully, they've gotten hot at the right time, just like the Eagles did last year. They just haven't been consistent.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the Chiefs have had some peaks and valleys. The Niners, too, but they survived and advanced to this point. So since you are the Prop Queen, we got to talk about some props.
Yeah.
Let's take the Niners first. Who jumps out to you on the prop market?
Based on what I just said, Brock Purdy under on his pass attempts. It's around 33.5. Purdy, again, doesn't have to throw the football too much. Give the ball to Christian McCaffrey. Run the time off the clock so that Mahomes doesn't have the football.
Right.
That should lead us to an under, just like Tom Brady with his 29 pass attempts. I see 29-30 for Purdy, who also has not had over 33.5 pass attempts on the road all season.
Right.
I look at neutral site games just like I look at a road game. That's my favorite Niners prop.
There's only two. There's certain numbers. Earlier in the week, it was 31.5. Only 2 times this year has he gone over 31.5.
Yeah.
The Super Bowl generally has such sharp numbers. It's the one number of all of them that jumped out to me. I feel like this is a little high. Win or lose, it feels high to me on Purdy.
I agree with that. I also was looking at the Niners wide receiver Deebo Samuel and his over on rushing yards. So last time that the Niners were in the playoffs last year, there was so much quarterback issue with the Niners. They had Brock Purdy get hurt. They had 3 different quarterbacks throughout the course of the year. If you look to the run they had with Jimmy Garoppolo, the last time that the Niners were in the Super Bowl, Shanahan was running with Deebo Samuel. Now, I know there was no Christian McCaffrey. It's even more likely now to use some deception and use Deebo Samuel in the backfield. He rushed for over 30 yards in all 3 playoff games that they played back in that 2019-2020 season. I'm looking at Deebo Samuel on the ground, and like you mentioned, these lines are sharp, and they've been going up all week on those rushing yards for Samuel.
Yeah, I'm with you on Deebo. Look, I think we all would concede that the most likely MVP candidates are going to be one of the 2 quarterbacks, but when you start to look at those longer shots, Deebo Samuel at 25-1 could be somebody, if he's able to get in the end zone a couple of times, that steals it. We've had 2 wide receivers win recently.
And it's actually, I love that you mentioned the MVP odds. Super Bowl MVP, this is the first time in a long time that I have seen a player who's not favored to win the Super Bowl be the favorite to be MVP. A good friend of mine, John Murray, who does trading at the Superbook here in Vegas, I asked him, I was like, John, why is Mahomes favored when Purdy is the favorite to win the Super Bowl? He said, there are so many Niners players, not Brock Purdy, that we're confident can still win Super Bowl MVP. Look at the storyline. Christian McCaffrey didn't win regular season MVP.
Right.
Maybe they give him Super Bowl MVP as a, sorry you didn't win MVP kind of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously he has to score 3 touchdowns, which is possible. Patrick Mahomes is plus 125 to win MVP. The next best is his tight end, Travis Kelce, and it's a huge drop-off to 16-1. And the next Chiefs player is Isaiah Pacheco at 30-1.
That's right.
Come on. It's just nuts that the book is looking at maybe we're not going to see a quarterback win MVP if it's the Niners.
Right. So, obviously, that Super Bowl MVP market is something that people like to bet. You don't always recommend long shots, but you have to look for a path. And somebody like Deebo Samuel, somebody like Isaiah Pacheco, if it's a Chiefs win, is somebody that I'm interested in at 35-1. I just feel like since I'm backing the Chiefs and you have to correlate all your bets, Pacheco saw 28 touches against your Ravens, even though he wasn't terribly productive. If he saw that kind of workload again and he broke a few, then he ends up having a huge monster
remember?
game.
I don't know if you remember this from my SportsGrid days. I think last Super Bowl I did was that Super Bowl with the Bucs and the Chiefs when I worked here.
That sounds right.
And I think I was on In Game Live. And I said, and I was obsessed, and I said it on the morning after. I was my hair is like, also this thing is, no. So I was obsessed with the 100-1 on the Bucs linebacker, Devin White. I bet that $100.
14 tackles, right?
He had 14 tackles and the game-sealing interception. Tom Brady ends up winning MVP.
Yeah.
So it's definitely on my mind.
That's the heartbreaker with Super Bowl MVP, because you were right.
Yes, he was the better player.
And he didn't get the award. And James White in the comeback Super Bowl Pats win had really the game of his life, and Brady got the MVP.
Yes.
Damian Williams had a great game against the Niners last time, but Mahomes got the MVP. So it still leans quarterback. But again, 4 times in the last 10 years, we have not had a QB
if you like the
win
Niners,
MVP.
clearly the odds makers are leaning towards it not being Brock Purdy.
So you and I, one of our favorite things that we did when we worked together was talk about defensive props. Anybody jump out to you on the defensive side of the ball?
You've got to look to the linebackers in San Francisco. It's got to be like any of those guys in the middle, because they're going to be trying to stop Isaiah Pacheco.
Yep.
And look at what the Chiefs have done in the last few weeks. They've just been dumping the ball off, short passes, dump off, short pass. Like, that's how they cut up the Ravens' defense in the first 2 drives 2 weeks ago. I look to the middle of the field for sure for the Niners.
Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, those guys, those props up around 8.5 total tackles. Nick Bolton on the Chiefs side, that same number of around 8.5.
Yep.
So, all right, any other storylines from the game that we haven't touched on yet that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I love the longest reception props.
Yeah.
Justin Watson is a name that stands out to me, a real sleeper play. I went through all the Chiefs receivers, because if you look at the Niners side, the Niners have given up a few deep balls each game. All the Chiefs receivers, I compared their home road splits and their season averages. Justin Watson is the best performing Chiefs receiver on the road when it comes to catching deep balls. Everyone else's drops, whether it's Travis Kelce or Rashee Rice, their number overall this season drops when they're on the road for a deep pass.
Right.
Justin Watson's averaging 17 yards per longest catch on the road this season, and his prop's only 12.5 for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Take the over on 12.5 longest
the
reception.
catch last week, and obviously down to punt. So he's a player that they do try to infuse in their game plan. So, all right, your Ravens. We got to talk about them for a minute. not in a
You're
look.
the first one to ask me today.
It's just in a now they're undergoing some transition now. Mike McDonald goes to Seattle. They still had an amazing season.
Yeah.
Didn't end the way you wanted it or the way they wanted it. But how do they bounce back from what happened last week?
The Ravens will be okay. The Ravens are still led by a great head coach in John Harbaugh. People sleep on him, but he has been a coach to get the Ravens into contention every year. Even in years that Lamar has had 0 receivers, the Ravens have always been dangerous. They went and got Roquan Smith. It didn't matter. When Ray Lewis was on the Ravens defense, it didn't matter who was defensive coordinator, because Ray Lewis at the spearhead of it made that defense better.
Yeah.
That's what Roquan Smith does. He makes the defense better. I would love to see my guy Patrick Queen back there at linebacker. They could re-sign him. They've got to keep that offensive line healthy. Maybe get a veteran wide receiver for the Ravens. The Ravens won a Super Bowl because they had Anquan Boldin. This coming season, if Lamar Jackson can have a wide receiver that has the experience, look at what just happened last week. Zay Flowers drops a touchdown like on the 1 yard line. That was a rookie move. He had a great catch in the end zone for that first touchdown.
He did.
Second touchdown, thought he's inside, and he drops the ball because he thinks he's in the end zone, and he's not. Rookie mistake. So, yes, the Ravens are going to get more experience. Lamar Jackson was never in an AFC championship game before. Zay Flowers, that was his first year in the league. They're going to get experience, and they're going to get better. They could get better by having a wide receiver who's a veteran that will help Lamar. And then on the defensive side, yeah, it's going to be Zach Orr. That's fine. He's the DC. The Ravens all talk so highly of him.
Yeah.
So I'm all for the Ravens, in the next year or two that they could get back to where they were. And, the team, if you listen to anything that the team said afterwards in the press conference, all they talked about was, I want to win this for Lamar.
Yeah.
The team is behind their quarterback.
That's great. So, obviously, Zach Orr steps in there. We're talking about Patrick Queen from the prop queen herself, Ariel Epstein with Fanatics Sportsbook. Make sure to tune in. Follow her on social. She's a Niners backer. She loves Debo. Longest reception prop from Justin Watson.
Mm-hmm.
So keep an eye on those, and we'll be back with more on SportsGrid after this.
There's my friend Ariel Epstein, a.k.a. the prop queen from Fanatics Sportsbook. Thanks to her for joining us here in Las Vegas. She just got into town, got right to set, film with me at Radio Row. Appreciate all the work that she did for us here at SportsGrid and for me today, getting us some interesting information. She's always had a really good angle on props, and follow her for even some defensive props that she may like as we get closer to the game. When we come back, we'll have some more interviews. SportsGrid Live from Las Vegas rolls on at the BetMGM Sportsbook right here at the MGM Grand.
Think about last year's game. It ends on the failed Hail Mary, and both teams run out onto the field. That's what you're looking for, is a game.
A chaotic end of the game.
You can't get the game.
Oh, great point. Yeah.
2-point spread in the game. Think it could come down to the wire. Everyone says script, Taylor Swift, all this stuff. So I like 1600, no Gatorade play.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
They have played terrible football, and yet they always win. Have you noticed? Everyone keeps talking about how bad the Niners suck as they win every week. They win every game, even games they should have. They're down 24-7, and they still won.
Now we have the first excuse when the Niners lose on Sunday night. They practiced on a bad field at UNLV. They didn't get the proper conditions.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm digging deep, fellas. I'm digging deep. Christian McCaffrey minus 220. Donnie, how could you do that? The price point is way out of control in this. Keep it simple. The goal is to win money, not to outsmart everybody.
Mahomes is minus 140 to throw 2 touchdown passes. And if he's going to, every single thing suggests a wide receiver will haul in at least one, if not both.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
I saw a study that said 24% of Taylor Swift fans actually do follow the Chiefs now.
Sure.
And when you consider how many fans she has, it's quite a lot, 24%.
Oh, yeah. You seen Travis Kelce's Instagram, his social media? Yeah. Everything. Right. It's huge.
Oh, no, listen. He's, like his agent said, he's going to be the next Rock. Like, they're setting him up to be, the next superstar.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We are back, SportsGrid live from Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Casino and Hotel. Great venue, obviously, here for the last few days. We continue to roll on throughout the week, and we're talking the big game, Super Bowl 58. And I got a chance to sit down with Adam Kaplan, somebody who's on with us every day, really, at SportsGrid during the football season. And I've done tons of shows with Pro Football Today and other shows. You find him on X.com and on social at Kaplan NFL. He's an NFL insider reporter for PFN 365. He's on SiriusXM and here all throughout the week, every week on SportsGrid. Here's what he had to say about Super Bowl 58 on Radio Row earlier today.
Hey, everybody, live from Radio Row. Mike Blewitt here with Adam Kaplan, my buddy from Pro Football Today for many years, and obviously helping us out this week at SportsGrid. So Super Bowl 58 just a couple of days away. These teams, we've seen some fluctuation in the line, up to 2.5 in certain places. 47.5 is the total. For you, what's the major storyline that you're thinking about?
There are a lot. I do radio on Kansas City every Thursday on WHB, and I mean, you could take quarterback versus quarterback, Reed versus Shanahan, the D coordinators, Steve Spagnuolo. The big talk here this week is this is like the 5th time it's come up. Does Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, if they win the Super Bowl, do we start talking about him for the Hall of Fame? I never even thought of that before.
Yeah.
But it keeps coming up because he's so good. And here's a guy who was fired by Sean Payton 8 years ago.
Right.
And he's rebuilt his career. He's phenomenal. And then when you really look at it, it's just the excellence of Mahomes and Andy Reid. One of these days he's going to retire over the next couple of years. I think it's going to happen.
Right.
I'm not saying now. I'm not saying after this game if they win.
Sure.
But then you have to think about his legacy. Is he right there with Belichick? He won't have as many rings, but if he doesn't retire and coaches 7 or 8 years, he might actually have more.
Right.
The best combo in my lifetime, Mahomes and Reid. Is there a better one, Mike, you could think of?
It's really just Brady and Belichick.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, but the legacy that Tom Brady has created almost seems unmatched, but yet Patrick Mahomes is in his 4th Super Bowl at age 28, which breaks the record that Brady had. It took till Brady his 30th birthday before he did that. So it's a massive thing to follow and a massive legacy to try to match, but Reid and Mahomes really are getting it done. You mentioned a lot about Steve Spagnuolo. I think it's a massive part of this game. His ability to particularly lock teams down in the second half has frustrated a lot of offensive coordinators, including last week in Baltimore.
What's interesting, Mike, is they're one of the heavier man cover teams in the NFL, about 36% in the regular season. They're way down. They're actually playing more zone than they have in a long time. And I think it's because the level of competition. Man, it's hard. If you play a lot of man coverage, when you start playing against teams with better pass targets, it's really hard. That's another facet if you really want to go inside the numbers and inside football here. It's the chess match. It's Shanahan and his ability to create space for the pass targets to run and the quarterback to throw, and Purdy, versus Spags is a great strategist. And that is one of the storylines. That's probably Spags versus Shanahan. That's the top coaching one for me.
Right. So obviously focus on the players here for a moment.
Sure.
You've got Mahomes and his massive legacy. Brock Purdy, last pick in the draft, famously, where he was drafted here just 2 years ago. Or the draft was here 2 years ago when Brock Purdy was drafted, as well as Isaiah Pacheco in that draft. So 2 major players coming full circle back to Vegas. So with Brock Purdy perhaps not playing his best football against the Packers and the first half against Detroit being a little bit shaky, expectations for him coming into this game.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because the big issue for them, the record is terrible in coming back from behind in fourth quarter. Terrible until these previous 2 games. And now they've got that, particularly the Detroit game, as you mentioned. I'll admit it. And not only did I say to Pharrell that Detroit will cover the number, I said, I'm not going to say they're going to win, but they're going to give the Niners a much better game than you think. And I think we all kind of agreed on coast to coast. But I didn't expect that. When they were up so big, I'm like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And then they turn it over. It was almost like not so much what the Niners did, it's so much what they did. So that concerned me a little bit. But looking at the Niners here, they've got the firepower. The one thing that you don't like is they're very regimented in offense. They play a system. And when they get out of their comfort zone, they struggle, and that's what you've seen. But they did show, and they have that confidence that they beat Detroit, and they were way behind at half. Now, I understand they were at home. This is a neutral site game. We don't know yet. I always get this is my 23rd Super Bowl. You get the flavor of the week. Okay, who's got more fans? Don't know that yet. I'm definitely seeing plenty of Kelsey jerseys, seeing a lot of number 15 Mahomes jerseys.
Yeah.
Seeing McCaffrey jerseys, not as paraphernalia, but definitely Chiefs so far this week.
Yeah,
not a lot, but
I'd say there's a component of us being in Vegas. I think there are a lot of native Vegas residents that are Niners fans.
Sure.
So the people that are traveling in, we're seeing a lot of Chiefs fans and starting to even out. So, all right, beyond the quarterbacks, player that you think could have the biggest impact in this game?
It's a good question. L'Jarius Sneed, star corner for the Chiefs. Again, he's more of a man-cover corner because Ayuk is so good. I would expect him to be on Ayuk. Now, I know they played in 2022, Week 7, super high-scoring game. Let's face it, Spags' defense is like now the best of the National Football League.
Yep.
I don't take a lot of that game with super high scoring. The Chiefs aren't scoring a lot of points anymore, and their defense is locked down. I would see that matchup, Snead on Ayuk. I expect that to happen when they play man coverage. Kelsey, who crushes zone defenses. The Niners run about 89% zone. Kelsey should do well. He had over 900 yards against zone coverage in the regular season. I expect that to happen. So I want to see what Steve Wilks, the D coordinator for the Niners, does because they play out a lot of zone. These matchups do favor the Chiefs a little bit. Remember, Mahomes, when that three-quarters of the way, he was struggling, right? Remember that terrible loss they had at home against the Raiders?
Yeah, of course.
Ever since then, it's been uphill. I mean, they're playing really well. So I would say Snead, and then could Chris Jones be a factor? Niners have a great, really not a great, but they're really good at tackle, particularly obviously Williams.
Yeah,
they're not as good in the interior. And can Jones push the pocket and make Purdy move? Because again, when you make him move and he doesn't have that timing down, he's not a good quarterback. That's a 3-step drop. The ball's got to be out at 1.75. When he's got to do it in 3 seconds, he's not as effective.
So you can see great perspective there from Adam. We're talking about impact players. I think a lot of you are thinking Mahomes, Purdy. Yep. He went with defense. I really do think it's a big part of the game as well. It's why I'm leaning towards the Chiefs. You said the magic word for me, matchups.
Yep.
It's nothing wrong with the Niners. Everybody throwing their best pitch. I think the San Francisco 49ers are the best team, but we have a Kansas City defense that does match up well against them. You said L'Jarius Sneed on Ayuk. I've basically eliminated Ayuk from any thought of him having a big game because Sneed is on him.
Yeah, in fact, if you're looking to do what I call the fantasy props, you got to understand matchups. I do like Kelsey in this game. I know it's somewhere around 70 yards.
Yeah,
I expect him to have a good game. Look, Rashee Rice has been awesome as a rookie. You really use a third receiver.
Yeah,
unfortunately, and that's kind of where they're at. And then you've got the McCaffrey factor. He's always capable of doing great. I can't wait to see what Spags is in store for him in fact, he was traded at the trade deadline last year, so I don't know if did he play against him in 22?
I don't believe so.
Yeah. So we'll see what Spags has in store for him, and obviously he could be an X factor because of the run and pass game.
Yeah. So all right. So Kelsey factor there for the Chiefs. On the San Francisco side, it runs through McCaffrey.
Oh, yeah.
Any expectations for we've talked a lot on this network this week about Deebo Samuel and his potential to impact the game.
And their record is well under 500 when he doesn't play.
Right.
Obviously, when he plays, it's well over 500. You're good to bring it up because in the run game, watch number 32, Nick Bolton, the middle linebacker for the Chiefs. He's phenomenal. He had that wrist surgery. He was out a while. Their run defense is not good when he wasn't able to play.
Right.
He's back. Willie Gay's over his neck problem. He missed a lot of time late in the season. Their defense suffered. He's back. He'll be ready to go. The only injury I'm concerned about is Joe Thuney, who probably won't play.
Yes.
With the pectoral strain. They're holding out hope somehow he could play, but I can't imagine he'll play without practicing because they don't know if he could function with strength.
Thuney really hasn't practiced. Jerick McKinnon did practice in a limited fashion yesterday.
He's awesome. 10 touchdowns last year, 22. A lot of them came in the red zone. I think he had 7 red zone touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's a prop if it's like plus 400 or something. You got to look at that because he has to be out. They've Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern to activate him off injured reserve.
Got it. They'd much rather use him than Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Mecole Hardman.
You can't depend on him.
Right.
No question. No, Mecole Hardman, forget about it. You're right. You're right.
Okay, so we got the game lined up. I want to give one more minute.
Sure.
2 more minutes maybe on some of the recent coaching hires.
Of course.
One that stands out to you that you think is a great fit.
I don't know what the fans – I know the Commander fans wanted Ben Johnson. It just didn't work out. I love the hire of Dan Quinn. Got to the Super Bowl with the Falcons. He just was given too much responsibility to end his career there. They had some bad drafts to end it, but He's got great energy and passion. Players always buy in with him. That's a very underrated hire. They just don't have a very good roster.
Yeah.
And Adam Peters is their GM who came from the Niners. So I think they'll form a great tandem there. I like that hire. That probably, to me, was the one that not enough people were talking about. Of course, it was the last one. Look, Ben McDonald, Mike McDonald,
Yeah.
Mike McDonald, the hire of Seattle, and he's only 36.
Yeah.
That is really young. He is not hired as offensive coordinator. I know that I'm told they have interest in Eric Bieniemy. They're talking to a lot of guys.
Right.
We'll see who becomes their offensive coordinator. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
To figure out how they're going to get Geno Smith back to where he was 2 years ago when he came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. And the one here in Vegas, I worked with Antonio Pierce at ESPN in 2017, Mike.
Right.
It's crazy. In fact, Antonio, because I remember talking about what he was doing before he went to Arizona State with Herm Edwards, he had car dealerships.
Right.
This is crazy. 7 years later, he's the head coach of the National Football League.
Yeah, it's quite a turnaround. So
yeah.
Great perspective as always. Adam Kaplan, you find him on X.com at Kaplan NFL, and he's here with us all week at the Grid, and you'll see him on Super Bowl Sunday as well.
Tremendous perspective from Adam Kaplan there. Again, find him on X.com at Kaplan NFL. He'll be on the network all throughout the weekend, and on Super Bowl Sunday, Super Bowl 58, just a few days away. Talked about a lot there, about how he thinks L'Jarius Sneed could be the most impactful player in the game, eliminating Brandon Ayuk. Perhaps he limits Deebo Samuel to some extent. That corner tandem in McDuffie and Sneed is something I've talked about a lot on the network throughout the week. I think they will play a huge factor in trying to at least limit what the Niners are able to do. And Adam also talked about some of those coaching hires. He loves the hire of Dan Quinn to Washington. Josh Harris, the new owner of the Commanders there, went through an exhaustive search. We thought Ben Johnson could be the head coach. Was it going to be Mike McDonald from the Ravens? Turns out it's Dan Quinn. I was going to be surprised if Dan Quinn did not land one of the opening coaching jobs this cycle. And it ends up he needed somebody to probably back out before he got it. But Dan Quinn, a head coach again in D.C. and right here in Las Vegas. Antonio Pierce. It really has been an unbelievable transformation from him retiring, doing some broadcasting for ESPN, and then winding up as head coach of the Raiders. It's been a quick ascent. Obviously, the players love him. There are going to be questions about the Raiders' ability to succeed when they're working with an uncertain quarterback situation. They have some high-profile players like Devontae Adams, but how much talent, and Max Crosby, how much talent do they have overall to compete in a division that's gotten very crowded with high-profile coaches in Jim Harbaugh, already Andy Reid, and obviously Sean Payton. So Antonio Pierce really has his work cut out for him on the coaching front, and trying to help rebuild that roster is the former Chargers GM, Tom Telesco. So we're going to close it out when we come back with a little bit more information from Warren Sharp, live from Las Vegas. It's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas, right here at the MGM Grand.
Brady, they don't call pass interference nearly as much as they used to. They're letting the guys play this year over the last couple of months. Vinovich has the reputation of letting them play. We saw he called 9 penalties only in the last Super Bowl. I've already placed the bet. Total accepted penalties in the Super Bowl under 10.5.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
If he doesn't run well, the Chiefs are really in trouble. If McCaffrey doesn't run well, there's a lot more options that you can actually use at that point. And that's how I'm trying to approach it and effectively. But also, Pacheco anytime touchdown. If they're going to score a touchdown, probably going to be him.
That's a good look. Attempts from Pacheco, if you believe
Kansas City's going to play their style. If you don't, then maybe you go under that total in regards to that.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They reel off the Chiefs, do 21 straight points. They win the game 31-20.
I've been selling this, because of the $23 billion is going to be bet on this game in the States this Sunday. That's insane. And this place, Vegas, they're going to make billions of dollars if the Chiefs don't win.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
You a hat guy? Oh, I've got hats. I've got a jillion hats. I hear I don't have as many hats as you, but I don't.
You don't. I have a hat bag.
He has a hat
Look,
bag.
I have a hat bag. I carry this
that's
around.
not a purse or man bag.
This
It's
is
a hat
ridiculous.
bag.
This is it. Look,
I love it.
I got to go everywhere.
Hey, by the way, the whole Randy Moss receiver versus Randy Moss TV guy, the mistaken identity and all that. How can you confuse us, right? He's got hair. He's got hair, and I don't.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Closing out hour number one, we got Warren Sharp coming up here talking about the San Francisco 49ers penchant for using two running back sets and how that could be effective on Sunday during Super Bowl 58.
The San Francisco 49ers run the ball with two running back sets more than any team in the NFL this year. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs have a lot of experience going up against teams that like to utilize two running back sets, be it 21 personnel, 22 personnel, etc. They just went up against the Miami Dolphins, who use two back sets at the second highest rate and actually lead the NFL in usage of 21 personnel. They also just played the Baltimore Ravens, who rank number 3 in usage rate of two back sets. In fact, of the top 13 teams in usage of two back sets, the Kansas City Chiefs this year have played 13 games against them. So they've got a lot of experience going up against teams that like to use two running backs when they're running the football. However, experience is one thing, performance is another. And the Kansas City Chiefs' performance against these teams when they're using two back sets has been absolutely dreadful. Against two running back sets, the Kansas City Chiefs ranked 23rd in EPA per attempt, 21st in success rate, and 27th in yards per carry. But specifically against 21 personnel runs on early downs, which is what the 49ers love to do, the Kansas City Chiefs defense ranks number 30 in EPA per attempt, number 30 in success rate, and number 30 in yards per carry, allowing 6 yards per carry. This is going to be on Steve Spagnuolo to devise a game plan that's going to be able to figure out a way to slow down these two running back sets of the San Francisco 49ers. It's not going to be easy. They haven't fared well against it, but expect them to see it early and often in the big game.
So for all the impact players that we talk about, Christian McCaffrey being one of them, Kyle Juszczyk, does he become a big factor in what Warren was talking about? He's the second running back, typically in the two running back set. So great stuff there. And Steve Spagnuolo, I trust him to devise that game plan. We'll see exactly how that works out and how Kyle Shanahan and Spagnuolo go against one another. So when we come back, it's hour number 2. More interviews? Absolutely, right here at the MGM Grand. The SportsGrid live from Las Vegas. Be right back after this. are live from Las Vegas. It's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas, right here at the MGM Grand Casino and Hotel. And we're excited to be in Vegas. What can I say? It's been a heck of a week thus far. We're far from done, and we'll continue to break down every angle that we can. We're going to have interviews this hour as well. We'll have Ken Fuchs, who's the COO and head of sports at Caesars. He was able to sit down, explain their strategy and exactly what they're seeing in the market right now. Obviously, they're longtime participants here in Las Vegas and in sports betting. We'll also bring on Rick Haro, sports marketer extraordinaire and author, a regular contributor to the business of sports here on SportsGrid. He'll be sitting down with me later this hour and get his perspective on the impact of a Super Bowl in Las Vegas from a variety of different ways. The revenue into town, the exposure that the Super Bowl will see as a result of being in Las Vegas. I'll say this, and there's a few people that I've interviewed and hung out with this week that live here in town. There really is no better place in the United States to do an event than Las Vegas. It's what they do. So as big as Radio Row is, and as big an event as the Super Bowl, arguably the biggest event in the history of this town in terms of sporting event, they can do it. It's just another week in Las Vegas. They have conventions that are many times the size of what Radio Row is, for example. But clearly, the mass of people moving in, the amount of celebrities, the amount of detail that needs to be paid to this event for the NFL is massive. Listen to CBS Sports President Sean McManus talk about how he's been planning this Super Bowl for 2 years. So SportsGrid's been clearly in a planning phase for a long period of time. We have multiple sets here at the MGM Grand Casino, the BetMGM Sportsbook, at Radio Row. We have people running around town, grabbing different interviews on handheld cameras. So there's a lot of mobility that we need to have as a crew, as an industry, in order to be able to put this event on in the way that we see fit. So that's a little bit about what Rick will talk to us about. Obviously, we'll get back to the game here and give you a sense of exactly some other things that I think it's important to keep track of, some future markets that have happened. Obviously, the Niners and the Chiefs were amongst the favorites to win the Super Bowl. The Chiefs, the favorite since the Super Bowl ended last year, and they find themselves back in that Super Bowl. There were obviously times during the year when you could get a better price on the Chiefs than what it is right now, plus 110 to win this singular game, but plus 600 is what they went off right before the year to win the Super Bowl. But clearly through 6 losses, you were able to get a better prices. So there's people holding Chiefs futures. The Niners were 10-1 at the beginning of the season. That shortened. Then they lost a few games. Price got a little bit longer. Niners been amongst the favorites all throughout the year. Certainly the NFC favorite for quite a while. But some of the other futures that are really important to note are those playoff leaders, an important market to update everybody on, because right now the playoff leader at passing yards is still Jared Goff at 837 yards. Patrick Mahomes behind him at 718. Purdy way down the list at 519. He's, well, not way down the list, but he's down the list behind Baker Mayfield and the other 2 players that I mentioned. So barring a monster game and Mahomes not doing anything, I don't think Purdy's going to make it there, but Mahomes still needs 120 yards in order to be the NFL playoff leader in passing. Rushing yards, Isaiah Pacheco finds himself at the top of the list at 254. Christian McCaffrey, despite playing 1 less game, finds himself at 188. So he trails by nearly 70 yards. He trails Pacheco. Obviously a possibility that McCaffrey could outgain Pacheco by 70-plus yards. And those holding the McCaffrey ticket, there was obviously a little bit of a longer price, even as good as he is, a little bit of a longer price than you otherwise see, because he had 1 less game in which to reach that milestone. And receiving yards, Amon-Ra St. Brown still leads at 274, but Travis Kelce right behind him at 262. It'd be a terrible game for the Chiefs if Travis Kelce can't pick up 13 yards. Rashee Rice, though, his teammate, 223 yards. He's just 40 off of the Kelce pace, and that makes him 51 yards, 52 yards in order to break the Amon-Ra St. Brown threshold right now. So those are the two guys you're looking at. Niners a little bit further down the list. Brandon Ayuk only with a 68-yard performance in the last game. Debo with 89 yards. But again, in this instance, the one less game really hurt it, especially when Travis Kelce had such a monster game against the Baltimore Ravens. So those are the NFL playoff leaders as you see it. The Chiefs with the 3 games, the Niners with the 2 games, getting their players there. So keep track of all those bets and all those future markets as best we can. For those of you that, something that I often do before the playoffs arrive, and it's not something I got down on heavily this year simply because I did think the Niners were going to get to the Super Bowl, and I thought the Chiefs had a strong chance. So the put a small amount on the Chiefs in order to get to the Super Bowl. But when the teams are decided for the playoffs, a market that I think people need to be aware of is the teams to win the Super Bowl just from that playoff pool. Obviously, you're going to take your long shots all throughout the year and before the games start in August and early September. But when those playoff teams are set, that 14-team pool, that's when you can find yourself some really good odds. The Rams a couple of years ago were 10-1 odds to win the Super Bowl after the regular season ended. So those really odds that you need to take advantage of. And you probably got the Chiefs at a pretty good price this year because they were going on the road to play Buffalo. They were going on the road to play the Ravens if everything worked out the way it did. And it did work out that way. They thrashed the Dolphins and then picked up 2 close wins on the road and put themselves in this position. So, again, futures, NFL futures, sort of my favorite thing to talk about, favorite thing to discuss and keep you updated along the way. When we talk about, when we have Ken Fuchs on later this hour, you'll get a sense of what the prop bets mean and how important they are and how Caesars played a role there. And we continue to update on our favorite prop bets. Deebo Samuel, I can tell you right now, has been the most popular player to discuss in terms of props. The over on his rushing yards of 16.5, the over on catches, Deebo's total over, something discussed quite a bit. And I'm even on those. I'm in favor of those bets, and I'm backing the Chiefs. I wonder aloud that with Ayuk potentially getting locked down by L'Jarius Sneed and or Trent McDuffie, what are his real opportunities? So we find other options. George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. Nick Bolton is just one man. Can't cover both players, and they utilize Deebo in such a multitude of ways. It brings him legitimate opportunities, and the way he's utilized in the red zone makes it even more important to track what he's going to do for potential scoring opportunities. They're not afraid to give him a carry in the red zone, and they're not afraid to throw to him in the red zone. But we'll talk about some of those long shots today, too, those anytime touchdown long shots. Rice, Kelce, Pacheco, we get it. Deebo, Kittle, McCaffrey, we get it now. But how about anybody else? Is Jawan Jennings a real possibility? Is Jerick McKinnon, when he's activated, are we going to get a market for Jerick McKinnon? When we come back, we'll discuss more of that right here on The Grid.
Would it be a disappointment if the Chargers aren't in the playoffs this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, the goal is to win a division because the best team in the league is in your division. So the mentality of it, forget the playoffs, forget the Super Bowl.
Division.
Let's win a division because we get a division.
It's like college, right? Win the conference.
That's it.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. the New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
To the big news here, a big push for Georgia to get things going as far as legalized sports betting. And Pat, I don't want to get people too excited. It's not like this is happening this year.
The Senate version and the House version, and then they're going to have to get a couple of people from each chamber together and kind of wrestle out the details of what exactly sports betting in Georgia might look like.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Bend but don't break, you've got to give Spags credit for that.
Sure, and that's I mean, for all the criticism that's been levied at KC this season, and there's been a lot, their defense has been a dominant unit. It's been a playoff winning unit. And, you know, you ask me what's the undervalued commodity here, it's KC's defense.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And we are back live, SportsGrid live from Las Vegas, right here at the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino. Excited to be here with you all week. Got some interviews coming up with Ken Fuchs and with Rick Haro. But let's get deeper into the game. More props, right? That's what this Super Bowl week is all about. You know I'm a Chiefs backer. You know that my best bet later today is going to be related to how much the Chiefs might win this game by. Specifically, I'll have to pick a score by the end of the week, and I'll do that for you as we get very late into the week. But what are we looking at right now? We're looking at anytime touchdown props, and I think we all know that the favored players are the ones right at the top of the Super Bowl MVP list. Christian McCaffrey, anytime touchdown minus 225, Pacheco minus 130, Kelsey minus 115, and everybody from there on out is at plus money. So what are the possibilities? And obviously you can bet first touchdown, last touchdown. I'll be honest, I generally don't get involved in those markets. However, for the Super Bowl, I think you can make some exceptions if you play a little bit light. Manage your bankroll as always, but play it a little bit light. What about a Rashee Rice first touchdown at plus 850? Explosive player, obviously. Do the Kansas City Chiefs do their best to get up early? I think they utilize Pacheco all throughout the game, but do they take shots early? Do they try to take advantage of what everybody feels might be one of the weaknesses of this 49ers team? There are talented defenders in the secondary, Travarius Ward, Ambry Thomas, Lenoir, but they've also shown a penchant for committing penalties. They've gotten burned on some big plays as well. They did against the Lions. Conversely, I shouldn't say conversely, but in addition to that, we've talked about how the Niners might be susceptible to the run. Warren Sharp earlier in the week with us did a great breakdown on how I think the Chiefs will attack the outside, both with the run and with the pass, even including Travis Kelce. Getting outside from Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner will be the best possible path for him to have a big game. But what about Rashee Rice? You can try to get him involved in the offense in a big way. Rice not as explosive as their former wide receiver Tyreek Hill, who was one of the key players in their Super Bowl victory against the Niners last time out. But I just want to get a little bit further down the board. Who else could have the possibility of a touchdown? So that Rashee Rice first touchdown, his anytime is plus 130, first touchdown plus 850. Something to take a look at. As you get a little bit further down, though, and like longer shots, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, You've got Jawan Jennings at plus 650. But an anytime touchdown for a guy who scored a touchdown the last time he played in the Super Bowl, Kyle Juszczyk. He's probably not the most talked about person in his family right now. His wife designing clothes for Taylor Swift and other celebrities. But Kyle Juszczyk, as Warren Sharp talked about during his Sharp report, the Niners love to use 2 running back sets, and the Chiefs have not been good in those scenarios. They will have to scheme something to slow that down. But if Juszczyk is going to be in there more often, then naturally he might have more opportunities. This offense is going to run through McCaffrey, run through Debo. But if Kyle Juszczyk is out there in 2 running back sets, they're not afraid to use him in goal line situations and high leverage situations. You saw him catching key passes against the Detroit Lions. At 10-1 for an anytime touchdown, I think there's a possibility there for those of you that like to play in that market. So Kyle Juszczyk at 10-1. If you wanted to bet him as the first touchdown, big payoff at 50-1 there, and the last touchdown 50-1, the same thing. So that's the big long shot on the Niners side. Obviously, you're going to have players like Sky Moore, who's just coming back. Do they utilize him in any way? But he's 7-1, 50-1 on the first touchdown. Mecole Hardman, who I can't see why they would give him the ball again. He touched the ball twice against the Bills and fumbled both times. He's 11-1 in that market. I'd keep an eye on Jerick McKinnon, obviously, if he's able to play, if a market pops up there. But for the Chiefs, it's just such a concentrated offense. I think the only way that you could see something happening here is if they decide to utilize a 2 tight end set. We've seen Noah Gray catch passes in the past in the end zone, and Noah Gray's at 9-1, 40-1 for that first touchdown. Again, I'm not suggesting that these markets are something you have to run to the window on and place a bet. We just have to talk about just about everybody that could touch the ball. Justin Watson, another player that we've seen make big plays, plus 650 and 33-1 in that first touchdown market. So the anytime touchdown market, obviously wildly popular. And we also are talk about multiple touchdown scores, because when we start to build, you start to build correlations within the game. Who you think is going to win? What do you think the score is going to be? How many points will be scored? You have to correlate your bets accordingly. You're not going to pick a monster game with multiple touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes if you think the Niners are going to win. It's just unlikely. It's not the way you would correlate your bets. And if you think it's going to be a low-scoring game, you're not also going to have somebody with multiple touchdowns, unless you think you can thread the needle. And I'm an Isaiah Pacheco for MVP. That's a dart I'll throw for this upcoming week. I've already done it at 35-1. How would Isaiah Pacheco get there? He has to go over his rushing yards of 67.5. So you bet that. He has to touch the ball a bunch. So you're over his rushing attempts of 16.5. Well, what else would he need to do in order to take that award away from Patrick Mahomes? Mahomes, in 2 of the Super Bowls, the 2 Super Bowl rings that he has right now, won the MVP award in both. So he's obviously the most likely. He's not even favored to win the game. Pat Mahomes favorite on the MVP board. Not to suggest that if they lost, he would win, but I wouldn't say stranger things have happened. It's only happened once in Super Bowl history. Chuck Howley in Super Bowl 5. As Dallas Cowboys lost 16-13 to the Baltimore Colts. He took down the Super Bowl MVP award. But multiple touchdown market. Christian McCaffrey, 2 or more, plus 225. And my guy, Isaiah Pacheco, plus 450. So not a huge price. He's heavily favored to he's favored to score a touchdown, or he's minus money to score a touchdown, so you're not going to get that big of a price. But plus 450, for Isaiah Pacheco to score 2 touchdowns. 3 or more market, you're really gambling when it comes to that. McCaffrey at 9-1, Pacheco at 20-1. But Travis Kelce to score 2 touchdowns, plus 550. Rob Gronkowski, a tight end peer of his at points during his career, he twice scored 2 touchdowns in a Super Bowl, so not out of the question that a tight end could have multiple scores. He did it with both the Patriots against the Eagles and the Bucks against the Chiefs just a few years ago. Rashee Rice to score 2 touchdowns. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. It's late in the week. 10-1. Ayuk 12-1. Debo 12-1. is interesting, and then it starts to get much, much higher from there. So the 2-touchdown market, McCaffrey, Pacheco, and Kelsey, it ends there for me. But maybe Debo, if you really wanted to expand it to a fourth player, but Ayuk, Kittle, and anybody else, I just don't see it. I will say that I have seen Patrick Mahomes run in the playoffs more, but when it gets down to the goal line, they tend to trust other players, Pacheco and more. They don't want him taking big hits, and I think everybody famously remembers that Mahomes, during a goal line sneak just a few years ago, dislocated his kneecap. I think they'll be hesitant to ever put him in that position again, but the Super Bowl is what these times are for. People are going to take, teams, coaches are going to take more risk when it comes to this game. So when we come back, we will have Ken Fuchs on with us. We'll be joined by Rick Haro a little bit later in the hour to talk through the impact of this game on Las Vegas and exactly what's happening here, the attendance, the number of people. The population of Las Vegas fluctuates quite a bit, obviously, and its actual population does not give an accurate representation of the sheer mass of people that are here each and every day. Thousands of people in each hotel, all around me, all in front of me. We'll try to hype them up when I come back after this with the Ken Fuchs interview and Rick Haro after that. Mike Blewitt live from Las Vegas. It's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas from the MGM Grand Casino and Hotel.
This team has been capable of overcoming deficits until this season. In 2023, the Kansas City Chiefs are 2-4 when they trail by more than 7 points at any point in the game. And the only 2 comeback wins that they have are over backup quarterbacks that do not have a lot of experience.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I'm digging deep, fellas. I'm digging deep. Christian McCaffrey minus 220. Donnie, how could you do that? The price point is way out of control in this. Keep it simple. The goal is to win money, not to outsmart everybody.
Mahomes is minus 140 to throw 2 touchdown passes. And if he's going to, every single thing suggests a wide receiver will haul in at least one, if not both.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
0 points scored in the fourth quarter of that Falcons Super Bowl, and the Niners were shut out.
Yep.
So in the 2 biggest games of the 2 Super Bowls, one as a coordinator, one as a head coach, he hasn't scored a single point in the fourth quarter. And I tell you what, if they don't, on Sunday, they're not winning the game, bro.
Exactly.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're back, SportsGrid Live from Las Vegas here at the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino. Excited to be here. As always, I have an interview coming up here with Ken Fuchs. He's COO and head of sports at Caesars. And Ken gives a great perspective, and I'll let him do the talking himself, but a great perspective on what Caesars means to Las Vegas and what the sports betting scene, how it's grown, and what it's like as this sports betting scene continues to evolve from state to state. Las Vegas, really, prior to a few years ago, was the only state where you could even do it. Now, with the use of your handheld device here, you can have yourself wagering on the BetMGM app and hopefully driving your bank account a little bit. Having fun is really the key. We're live, sports betting's live in dozens of states now, but there's still a long way to go. States like Florida, California, Texas are still, Florida recently got over the line, but California and Texas, the two most populated states that we have, still find themselves on the outside looking in on sports betting. So here's a little bit of Ken Fuchs, the COO and head of sports from Caesars, talking about the Super Bowl's impact on Caesars.
Okay, we're live on set at Radio Row, live from Las Vegas. I'm Mike Blewitt, along with Ken Fuchs, head of sports at Caesars. Excited to have you here, Ken.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
What's it like being in Vegas? Obviously, it's your town to do events, but the Super Bowl being here just a couple of miles away has to be a little off-putting to some.
Well, I think it's incredible. The energy is amazing. I mean, you combine the biggest sports entertainment event in the world with the biggest entertainment city in the world.
I love it.
We know how to put on these events. We did it with the draft a couple of years ago. We obviously have the Knights, and we've got the Raiders. We had Formula One here. Like, we're becoming a destination for big events.
I love it.
Sports world.
More professional sports teams in town. Super Bowl draft. I was here for the draft a couple of years ago. Just a tremendous place to obviously host this event. So we'd love to talk a little bit about Caesar's place in the sports betting world. It's long been known as one of the tops in the industry. How do you fit right now into this exploding sports betting market?
Yeah, I mean, really well. We're official partners with the NFL. We have our business in 30 states or more. We've really grown with the industry. And when you think about the iconic nature of Caesar Sportsbook, we invented the sports prop with William Fridge Perry in 1986. And, for us, I think this is all full circle. Like, we love everybody coming to Vegas. We know we are the app and the location where everybody can spend their time and make their bets. And at the end of the day, Super Bowl is a social endeavor as much as it is about a game. And when you talk about the literally over 100 sports books around the state that you can come watch the game with friends, put a bet down, have some food, I just think it'll be incredibly exciting.
What kind of crowds are you expecting on Sunday for the game?
Gigantic. Gigantic. I mean, we're staffed out, and we are ready for it. But it'll be a lot of fun. I mean, we get big crowds every year, right? People come here to watch the game. But I think having the game here itself also makes it special. And so I think you'll see an extra level than you have in years past.
Excellent. So, again, we're with Ken Fuchs, CEO and head of sports at Caesars. Let's focus a little bit on the game. What's the betting market looking like for you? What's the handle look like? What's surprising to you so far?
Yeah, I mean, the handle market looks great. I mean, you've got two premier teams, well coached. You've got star players. You've got a really tight spread. So I think it's going to be an excellent game, and you're seeing that in the interest that we see on the volume. I think, a lot of talk about prop bets and kind of the rise of that, and we're definitely seeing interest there. I think one of the fascinating stats is right now, Travis Kelce, anytime touchdown score, has more bets than either the 49ers money line or spread. So maybe there's a little third-party influence.
Yeah, potentially an impact from the Swifties and how popular it is. But look, I know some people bristle at the notion that Taylor Swift is a part of our football world, but I've personally embraced it. I think it's great for the game. I think it's getting more people interested in not just football, but everything surrounding football, like our world.
Yeah, I think there's always a cultural angle to these games. This year happens to be maybe a bit more directed there, but the Super Bowl brings in the biggest audience in the U.S. every year, and lots of fans and lots of casual fans. And for us, it's about providing an experience for all of them, no matter who you are and what you're interested in.
All right, so Travis Kelce, we know a lot of volume there, more than the Niners spread and money line bets. How about some other angles out there that people are interested in or that you're interested in talking about? Deebo Samuel's name comes up a lot this week.
Samuel, McCaffrey, of course. you're still seeing a lot of money on Mahomes, MVP, and Brock Purdy. So I think, stars rule the day. You're seeing that. But when you look at our betting menu, you can bet everything from the coin toss to will a field goal go off the upright, to will there be an onside kick, to will there be a safety. And so people find what they want to find. And a lot of times that's who's going to win the game, and a lot of times that's something a bit more esoteric or a derivative of a market, and we've got everything.
Right. So I have a prop bet sheet here. Ken gave me some highlights before he came on, and some really good ones that are highlighted here. Will a missed field goal hit an upright? So the doink bet, I guess, is what you would call it.
The doink. As a Bears fan, it's a double doink bet. But yes, the doink bet for sure.
I'm sorry to bring up an old memory, a bad memory. But I was listening to a podcast earlier this week, and CBS is going to have the uprights mic'd up to make sure that we get a little extra sound in case it does hit an upright. So
you'll
hopefully,
know whether you win or lost. Right
and people
away.
in your book will be celebrating or upset that it did that.
That's
And
true.
rostered QB to have a reception. So I guess that protects you against somebody that's playing both positions. But a rostered QB to make a reception, a yes is plus 1,800. So good payday.
Yeah, look, it's happened. Philly special, or you have a bunch of different trick plays every Super Bowl that happens, right? So whether it's a non-QB to throw a touchdown pass, whether it's a QB to have a reception, whether it's a defensive player to score an offensive touchdown, you tend to see some variation of those almost every game. I think 2 years ago, Joe Mixon threw a touchdown that cashed for a customer. So there will be something. Just a question of figuring out which thing Andy Reid's probably going to call, because it's usually Andy Reid.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So outside of Travis Kelce, what position is the most heavily bet this week? We have two high-profile bell cow running backs in Isaiah Pacheco and Christian McCaffrey. We obviously have the most high-profile quarterback, Mahomes versus Purdy, where people are really trying to figure out how he's going to play in this game. So positional group, where are you seeing a lot of money beyond Travis Kelce?
Yeah, right. Obviously Kelce, but always the quarterbacks, always Pacheco and McCaffrey. Deebo Samuel is getting a lot of action too. So it usually boils down to your star players. And in this case, no difference.
Got it. So let me ask you a question. For obviously a lot of people in our world, in Caesars, at SportsGrid, are very familiar with sports betting. How would you encourage somebody to get started? By downloading the app, obviously, and getting started.
Yeah, go find Caesars Sportsbook on the App Store for Apple or for Android or Google. Download it, sign up, make a deposit, and find a bet. I mean, it really is very simple. The Super Bowl's right on the homepage. You can just bet on who's going to win the game, or you can find something, whatever you're interested in, whether it's a star player or something more fun. We've got a bunch of Taylor Swift booths, if that's your thing, as well. So there's always something.
As somebody with an 8-year-old daughter that has to listen to Taylor Swift every single day, I encourage you to get to Caesars and maybe play the Taylor Swift market. Passing TD by a non-rostered QB. That's plus 1,000, another fun one out there. So download that Caesars Sportsbook app. Again, Ken Fuchs, the COO and head of sports for Caesars. Thanks for coming on with us, SportsGrid Live from Las Vegas.
Thanks for having me. Love everything that you guys do, and it'll be a great weekend.
Great. More with SportsGrid right after this.
Great stuff there from Ken Fuchs. He's COO and head of sports from Caesars. So one thing that he said there that was surprising was the Travis Kelce bets that they are taking. Hang on
I don't know. You don't know.
Can we turn the other microphone off? Sorry to do that live. There we go.
Ooh.
Okay. So the Travis Kelce bets, they've taken more Travis Kelce prop bets than they've taken on the Niners money line and Niners spread bets. So the outside influence of Travis Kelce Swifties is really getting people involved in a significant way. Obviously, he's been playing great football. He played great against the Ravens, and his ability to keep producing, even as people are suggesting that he's slowing down, says a lot about how people like him to get into the end zone. So those Travis Kelce anytime touchdown props, an easy way for people to maybe make their way to a sportsbook and place their first bet. Do it responsibly. Do it with a little bit of knowledge in your back pocket, and root your heart out for somebody who may be your favorite player. He's certainly my daughter is 8 years old. I don't know that she's a big NFL fan at the moment, but she knows who Travis Kelce is. I think she calls him number 87. So that says a lot about his impact on his outside, his off-the-field relationship and how it's impacting people the world over. She doesn't really care much about my show, to be honest, but she cares about who Travis Kelce's boyfriend might be. So great job there from Ken Fuchs, giving us some perspective on the prop market, how they influence the prop market from the early 1980s. The refrigerator Perry bet, really the first prop bet that got that market going and allows us to talk about the Super Bowl as long as we talk about it. When we come back, we're going to have Rick Haro. Rick Haro's on SportsGrid on a regular basis talking about sports business, sports marketing, and you'll gain some knowledge about what this Super Bowl means to the city, what the Super Bowl being here means to the NFL, and what the fans can expect to see on Sunday from a commercial standpoint, from an entertainment standpoint. We know Usher's a part of that halftime show. Not Taylor Swift, but Taylor Swift is part of the show, I assure you. There's no guarantee that she's going to be here, but it's been worked out. She can get here in plenty of time for the game if she so chooses. So keep sifting through that prop market. Like Ken says, he gave me some really fun ones. So you go to Caesars and find some of the, maybe a rostered quarterback catches a touchdown. Maybe a non-rostered QB throws a touchdown. Quarterback catches a touchdown. Non-rostered QB throws a touchdown. Rick Haro on next on the Grid.
Think about last year's game. It ends on the failed Hail Mary, and both teams run out onto the field. That's what you're looking for, is a
chaotic end of the game.
You can't get the game.
Oh, great point. Yeah.
2-point spread in the game. Think it could come down to the wire. Everyone says script, Taylor Swift, all this stuff. So I like 1,600, no Gatorade Port.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Super Bowl is set in Vegas. We get a rematch from just a few years ago.
The only consistency in the playoffs has been Travis Kelce.
Brock Purdy, back-to-back leads throwing one touchdown pass, right? You can't win MVP with one touchdown pass.
I hate the Chiefs, but I bet on them.
This is going to be a game that is played inside a field goal now from a spread perspective.
All that matters is there's one game left, the big game.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
They have played terrible football, and yet they always win. Have you noticed? Everyone keeps talking about how bad the Niners suck as they win every week. They win every game, even games they should have. They're down 24-7, and they still won.
Now we have the first excuse. When the Niners lose on Sunday night, they practiced on a bad field at UNLV. They didn't get the proper conditions.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
If he doesn't run well, the Chiefs are really in trouble. If McCaffrey doesn't run well, there's a lot more options that you can actually use at that point. And that's how I'm trying to approach it and effectively. But also, Pacheco anytime touchdown. If they're going to score a touchdown, probably going to be him.
That's a good look. Attempts from Pacheco if you believe Kansas City's going to play their style. If you don't, then maybe you go under that total in regards to that.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
We are back at the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino live from Las Vegas. It's SportsGrid live from Las Vegas. And we have our friend Rick Haro here. Rick, obviously on the grid all the time, talking about the business of sports marketing, media's impact, and that's really where I wanted to start on the economic impact. It's obviously such a unique city.
Yeah.
They are the experts in putting on events. So where does this rank in terms of events in this city? They had the Las Vegas Grand Prix not too long ago. So how does this rank? It's got to be the highest ranked sporting event that they've had, correct?
Right. Well, first, let me start by saying it is an absolute profound honor to be on any space that Mike Blewitt co-occupies with me, so thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And so you didn't ask me this question, but Corso does this, right? So there you go. That's my answer. Uh-oh. All right. That ends it. By the way,
I'm Chiefs backer this week.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't listen to me, and you shouldn't listen to you as far as touts and odds.
Yeah.
We both provide information relative to what the city and NFL and otherwise. So going back to answering your question, Vegas went from a organized crime desert city that nobody cared about to, after 2017 and the gambling ruling by the Supreme Court, a city where everybody can go to legitimate events. And boy, Mayor Goodman, the current Mrs. Mayor Goodman, and all of the others really took the tiger by the tail. All of a sudden you had the Golden Knights that begat Formula One, that begat now the A's, the Raiders, and Allegiant Stadium. And all of those things make this a primary tourist destination that almost kind of usurps and replaces gambling. People come to gamble, but an interesting comment on a survey, 83% of the people that go to Allegiant Stadium are saying that they're now extending their stay or they're coming to Vegas because of the events in that facility. 170 events, concerts, 750,000 attendees. Obviously, the Raiders, you got bowl games, you got this. We'll talk about it later, but you got a regular de facto return rotation back to Vegas for Super Bowls. You got a lot of good stuff. Economic impact in the billions. The Convention and Visitor Bureau admits here to about a $700 million economic impact. Formula One, 22 billion impressions in that event. People talk about Vegas as Taylor Swift's global journey is tracked around the world. People in Japan know Las Vegas. They know Las Vegas for a lot of reasons, but they also know Las Vegas because the number one icon is going to match up with her romantic rival, assuming the global rotation fits with the jet stream. She will be here before kickoff. And then, assuming the Chiefs win, you heard it here first, Taylor Swift will get down on her knees and propose to Travis Swift on the condition that he change his name. What do you think of that?
I'd like to see a prop on that one. I think it's a little bit of a long shot. It's a little early on to be doing that. But I think I think you built that really well because each event builds upon itself, right? Each event is a brochure for the next one. It's why cities attract big events like this. Now, no city does it quite like Vegas, and heck, the Radio Row is really intense, and there's a lot of big sets. But that pales in comparison to some of the other conventions that they have here, like a CES or some other high-scale events. They are many times the size of what Radio Row is.
You look at some of the advertised events, just walking through the Mandalay Bay and MGM and otherwise, you got the World Pickleball Championship. You got a tennis event that you would have never thought would happen at the beginning of the tennis season. And so these events that the sporting community takes for granted. And let's remember again, for the second time at this point, before 17 or before, it was radioactive. The last people you would ever consider taking an event to are the Vegas Convention and Visitors Bureau. Radioactive. When I was working with the NFL and I was in charge of putting stadium deals together, by the way, I was the reverse Robin Hood. I identified public money. We would identify it for the teams. The teams would take the taxpayer money and give it to the players. That's not exactly what happened, but all over the country, you would have stadiums done, and everybody would say, yeah, you can do it. Don't talk about Indian gambling. Don't talk about casino sponsorships. Make sure you find public money, not gaming. Now, NFL has 9 partners all kinds of gaming issues, as we know. Props are normal talk.
Yep.
You walk in here, what do you see? Slot machines themed around NFL teams, NFL logos.
That's right.
And it only gets bigger.
Yeah, the first thing you see when you walk into Radio Row is slot machines featuring NFL logos, notably these two teams that you see right here on the desk. So how about we're talking about the location being Las Vegas, and it has now found itself in the rotation, but what has happened over the last, call it decade, really, 15 years, more and more teams are building domes. I don't know that the NFL wants to do what they did in New York many years ago. Part of that is the city itself. The stadium's in New Jersey. It's cold weather. Plus, New York is a city that it's very hard to galvanize the city of New York to care about one thing in particular. I worked Super Bowl Sunday in Times Square, walked down the street out of a radio studio, and you wouldn't have known that the Super Bowl was there that day. So that takes a back seat, but there are other cities building domes. We now have one here. We have one being built in Nashville. So that opens up likely the rotation for Super Bowl locations, correct?
Yeah, let me give you kind of a primer on this with not too much time, but this is a big issue. So the NFL looks at how to leverage their product and expand it. So that's why you have Brazil starting on opening Friday. Correct. It takes another window. Forget the high school. Now we have an opening Friday. Germany, Berlin, Frankfurt, London, Munich, all of those cities. But now in the U.S., how do you keep the U.S. cities interested? And you got 32 teams that focus on 30 stadiums, and you want to get them all in the mix. Well, there are a lot of different products. Peter O'Reilly, good friend, we interviewed him where he's been on the record on SportsGrid. He talked about the whole mix. Super Bowl rotation, build in New Orleans, go next year, take it for granted. Everybody drinks, stays in the center of the city, tremendous economic impact. Super Bowl 10, very safe. Everybody loves that. SoFi, going back there on a regular basis. LA. Then you got Phoenix, spread out, dome, count on it. This will be part of a every 3 or 4 year, maybe 5 year regular rotation, guarantee that. But then you've got some of the other cities. Nashville's an interesting one, as you point out. It's a dome. They made the decision for the economic impact in covering it. But that's not really an NFL destination, but it's a country music and entertainment destination, so we're going to see that X number of times. Certain of the cities have opted out. So Minnesota builds a dome, but you freeze getting to and from it. They'll have a couple, but they're not going to have 100. Same thing with Detroit. Ford Field is great. That's fine. Buffalo could have had it, made a decision, open air, forget it. Chicago, making a decision, probably going to be open air in the new stadium, forget it. They decide it's more important for our fans to have a higher priced suite and a home field advantage than worrying about the Super Bowls and the Final Fours. That's their economic decision, so they're not in the race. Miami, Tampa, continually in the race every 3 or 4 years as well. And so you got all of the...
Jacksonville, though, I would like to interject. Jacksonville basically took themselves out of it with the media having a terrible experience at one of the games hosted there.
Two issues there. First of all, NFL could care less about the media, so forget it. No, that's actually not true. They put a lot of the owners...
Well, I say that only because the media publicized how difficult they found it, and for fans to get around Jacksonville, which is one of the I think it's the largest area city in the United States. So people have to travel everywhere. There's many different neighborhoods. It makes it more difficult.
And owners were put up, many of them, on the Queen Mary. They didn't like being on a ship, but that's another issue. So there are a lot of kind of personal issues for Jacksonville. They may get another one, but it may take a while. The real keys are those linchpin cities, and because Vegas is so popular, got a dome, everybody understands it's a mega event destination, it's going to make it harder for all of those other cities to stay in a regular rotation, maybe every 5th year, not every 4th year, but they're all going to continue to vie, and they've all got their chops in the game. Super Bowl, important. Draft, Detroit next year, Green Bay the year after that. I was talking to Peter O'Reilly, who controls the draft. The idiot that let the draft get away, who was then the booking guy at Radio City Music Hall, I hope he doesn't have a job anymore, because it started in Chicago, remember Philly, Nashville, all of those places. So the draft is not the mega event, but it's one of those things you can do. In cities like Kansas City, where you know you're going to not get a Super Bowl.
Well, you have 200,000 or 300,000 people coming through in a weekend. That's a real impact to a city. And I went to the draft when it was in Radio City, and they kept it small. They realized it was getting bigger, but you can't match what you can do in some of these other cities with grand setups, even to their credit. Philadelphia is not a big city, but they incorporated different parts, different landmarks of the city to make it a fun event.
It is a different environment. If you're going to see something at Radio City Music Hall, the left, the third Rockette from the left, looks like the same from the Rockettes are different than the draft. You got to be able to draft different people.
That's right.
That's a different story. I can't wait for Detroit, and I really can't wait for Green Bay. That's going to be a hell of a draft.
Yeah, we'll SportsGrid. We'll keep you updated as to whether or not we'll be live on the scene in Detroit, just like we were live a couple of years ago, right here in this very spot. BetMGM Sportsbook, the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino. So you talked a little bit about Brazil and obviously the push to go international. We had great success in Germany this year. The NFL had great success in Germany. How about let's talk about the media impact as we land the plane on this segment. The media impact. We looked at AFC championship games and NFC championship games that broke records. Obviously, we're breaking streaming records every time we stream an NFL playoff game. But this audience could be north of 120 million people, the largest in American history.
I think it may be north of 130. And remember, the whole new streaming package, as we've defined it now, the streaming world is entirely different today than it was even a week ago.
Yeah.
You have the Swifties increasing NFL avidity by 9%. You know, these are people who never watched a football game before, and now they're tied into the result and they're tied into the NFL. Then you have the combination of new Nielsen and new ratings, where it used to be one church is 1 point. Now all the people who are watching in the church, all the people who are watching in the bar, X number. So you may have more than 130 million. You may have even more. But the NFL is figuring out new windows. You now have a early Martin Luther King window that was everybody's surprise after Snow postponed that Buffalo-Pittsburgh game.
Correct.
All of a sudden, luckily, that wild card weekend every year is going to fall on Martin Luther King Day. Pity the poor NBA, because they thought they had that for themselves, just like Christmas.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. The NFL continues to generate box office revenues, and they're going even further.
Right. So, and this all leads to, I think people sometimes have a sense of, look, where else are you going to get an audience from? They're finding it. They're going to Brazil to do it. Yeah. They're going to Germany to do it. Multiple German cities, right? Not just Berlin, not just their largest city. They go to Frankfurt in order to do it and take advantage of some of the affinity that was born out of NFL Europe and the World League many years ago. So drilling down into the international audience, and yes, it is a wildly unique scenario. And for all you conspiracy theorists out there, you're watching the wrong show. I'm not a conspiracy guy. But when you find a pop star that happens to be watching the games and attending the games, naturally they're going to take advantage of it.
Well, and why wouldn't they? And the bottom line is, this lady has the ability to register 40,000 people overnight. Democrat, Republican, I don't care what it is, just because she says get out the vote. Yeah. And now that she has a friend who is probably one of the most prolific tight ends in history, it's all the better for everybody.
Yeah, great stuff, as always, from Rick Horrow. You find him on SportsGrid on a regular basis, bringing us all the news on the business of sports. When I come back, I'll give you my best bet for the day right here. SportsGrid live from Las Vegas.
.47 is one of the hardest numbers to beat, period, for an NFL football game. A lot of combinations that can fall 47. You decide.
Of course.
You're getting great two-way action. That's what you want as the book. You don't have to move the number. Right. Biggest game of the year is the easiest game to book in the world.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I'm digging deep, fellas. I'm digging deep. Christian McCaffrey minus 220. Donnie, how could you do that? The price point is way out of control in this. Keep it simple. The goal is to win money, not to outsmart everybody.
Mahomes is minus 140 to throw 2 touchdown passes. And if he's going to, every single thing suggests a wide receiver will haul in at least one, if not both.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
You a hat guy? Oh, I've got hats. I've got a jillion hats. I hear I don't have as many hats as you, but I don't. You don't. I have a hat bag. He has a hat bag. I have a hat bag. I carry this around. That's not a purse or man bag. It's a hat bag. This is it. Look, I love it. I got to go everywhere. And by the way, the whole Randy Moss receiver versus Randy Moss TV guy, the mistaken identity and all that. How can you confuse us, right? He's got hair. He's got hair, and I don't.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I saw a study that said 24% of Taylor Swift fans actually do follow the Chiefs now.
Sure.
And when you consider how many fans she has, it's quite a lot, 24%. Right?
Oh, yeah. You seen Travis Kelce's Instagram, his social media? Yeah. Everything. Right. It's huge.
Oh, no, listen. He's, like his agent said, he's going to be the next Rock. Like, they're setting him up to be, the next superstar.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Closing out SportsGrid live from Las Vegas right here at the BetMGM Grand Hotel and Casino. A lot of people to thank today. Appreciate everybody that sat down with me for an interview. Ariel Epstein, Adam Kaplan, Ken Fuchs, and Rick Haro. Great stuff from all of them, from props to NFL inside news, business impact, and obviously Ken Fuchs at Caesars. So thank you to all the people that have helped me all week. I like to thank them each day. Patrick Foster, Sam Yarnell, my capable producers, as well as Preston behind the scenes, along with Frank helping us out and wiring me up every day and making me sound as good as I possibly can. So it's time for the best bets. I've given you a few already this week. I'll give you one more. I talked about how the Chiefs, we talked about winning margin earlier in this program, and winning margin is a different way to attack this because picking the final score is nearly impossible. You're trying to predict something with too many twists and turns. The fact that I did it a couple of years ago, Rams-Bengals, is kind of immaterial to me. I got lucky, and I don't think I'll ever get that lucky again. But you can bet winning margin. So here's a way you can attack it. I'll say, since I'm betting the Chiefs, you can bet the Chiefs by 1-6 on the BetMGM app. 1-6 by winning margin, or by 7-12 on winning margin. It's plus 333 at 1-6 and plus 550 at 7-12. So if you just say bet $50 on each of those, your outlay is $100. And if the game falls within 1-12 and they win the game, you have at least a $116 profit there if it falls 1-6, or even better, a $225 profit if it falls 7-12. So winning margin Chiefs 1-6 and winning margin Chiefs 7-12. So you got to bet them both here in order to cover yourself. Like I said, I did it for the UConn National Championship game, covered a couple of different bands of scoring, a couple of different bands of winning margin, and it ended up being a profitable night. So I'm building it all. I like Pacheco. I like Butker. I like the Chiefs winning margin here. I think you know which way I'm leaning. We'll have more prop bets, and we'll recap them all for you at the end of the week. But for today, that's where we are. Backing the Chiefs, winning margin. Thanks again to everybody that joined us. Thanks for watching and listening. We're live from Las Vegas every day out here as we gear up to Super Bowl 58 this weekend. We'll see you tomorrow. Gabe Morency after this.